Oh, that was easy, much easier than in the classroom. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I do appreciate, I thought the cold weather might keep a few of you away, so we do appreciate you coming out. And a very warm welcome to our boarding families online. We are so pleased to have Karen Young back with us again this year. Karen has recently formed part of a panel, some of you may know this, including a few other parenting experts, Dr. Justin Coulston, Maggie Dent and Michelle Mitchell. That was at the Resilient Kids Conference. She has literally, in her words, come sliding in sideways off a plane just then, so amazing, thank you for the effort to be with us. Karen began her career as a psychologist and created Hey Sigmund. Hey Sigmund is an internationally and nationally recognised resource and highly acclaimed resource, online resource which supports families and children. She is the author of several books, probably her most commonly known are Hey Warrior and Hey Sigmund, and most recently she's just published Ups and Downs. So tonight Karen speaks with us about the importance of emotional self-regulation, and as somebody pointed out on the way in, it's not always easy to get emotional self-regulation talks and information in the West, so we are very grateful that you are with us as a part of this road trip of yours, Karen, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me for the next hour and a half or so. I feel really lucky to be here. Now, we're going to talk about emotional regulation in kids tonight and ourselves, because it starts with us. It's one of the most important skills, I suppose you could call it, that we can nurture in our kids, but it's going to take a long, long time. So if you're sitting there going, oh man, my kid is nowhere near this, that's good, they're normal, they're not meant to be yet. It's going to take a long time, decades actually. And even as adults, we all have fully developed brains. Don't even tell me you don't lose your mind. Sometimes we lose our thinking mind. So it's okay, but I'm going to talk you through it tonight. Now, just get my clicker. Now, to start with, the way I want to do this is build it from the ground up. Because if you can understand how the brain develops and what it needs, it's going to make it much easier to give them what they need to nurture them along. The biggest thing they're going to need is their relationship with you, of course, and the support from you. We'll talk about how to do that. Now, this is a picture of the brain, should be facing that way. To start with, this is for all of us, this information. This works this way in all of us. Now think of the brain divided into three. At the very back, that yellow part, that is our primal brain. This is the part of the brain that takes care of all the physiology that keeps us alive. Heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, hunger, digestion, sleep, all of it. Now we share this part of the brain with all reptiles. Now think about how reptiles are in the world. They don't care about themselves, they're very self-focused. And it's all about their physical safety, their physical selves, staying safe. They don't care about relationships, they eat their partners, they eat their babies, they don't care. And they'll never love you. They don't have the capacity to feel. So you can have a pet snake, a pet lizard, all its life, it's never going to love you back because they just can't, they just don't have feelings, they don't care, it's all about them. You can't teach it anything. So this part of the brain that we all share with all reptiles is asking every minute of every day in every single human on the planet, is my body okay? Is my body safe? When we talk about safe, not safe, danger, threat tonight, we're not talking about what is actually safe or not safe. We're talking about what the brain perceives. And the brain will perceive all sorts of things. The brain doesn't care for truth or reality. So we really have to respond to what the brain is perceiving. Now, the primal brain, it's asking, is my body safe? Is my body regulated? You can kind of make it, is my body okay enough? Is my body free from threat, hunger, pain, exhaustion, sensory overload, sensory underload? Does my body need to move? Am I sitting still for too long? Now in the middle, that next part, that green part, that is the feeling brain. We share this part of the brain with all mammals. Now think about how mammals are in the world. They need to belong. They need to be claimed. They need to be with. If a young mammal is excluded from its pack in the wild, it's probably going to die, isn't it? If it doesn't die, it's probably going to go feral. Our young mammals, we're all mammals. We need to be with. We feel safest when we're with. So this part of the brain that we share with all mammals, all of us do, is asking every minute of every day, am I relationally safe? Am I relationally okay? What it's asking, am I loved? Am I cared for? Do I belong here? Have I been claimed by a group? Am I welcome? For brains to feel safe, they must feel welcome. This is why for any of us, if we're walking into a room full of people that we don't know, it can make us a bit anxious. Hopefully we've had enough life experience that we know people will receive us kindly and warmly, but the brain doesn't care, remember. We might be rejected. We might be shamed. We might mess it up. We might do something that we don't know. Probably not, but the brain doesn't care for that. Am I free from shame, humiliation, judgment? Am I free from interruption? Am I free from failure? Not missing out on something important, not messing up something important. Does someone miss me when I'm not here? That's what that part of the brain is asking. Then at the very front, that purple part, that's the prefrontal cortex. That's the human brain. That's the part that makes us distinctly human. So only humans have a thinking brain. We call it the thinking brain. So anything that we can do that dogs can't do, it's all because of that thinking brain. Learning, retrieving learned information, applying learned information, thinking through consequences, problem solving, making deliberate decisions, making good decisions, weighing things up. It's actually the part of the brain that can calm the feeling brain. So self-regulation, self-control, all happens in that thinking brain. Now, the way it works. In every human on the planet, it's happening in you right now. And it happens in your kiddos, every human on the planet. Information comes into us through the senses and internally. It hits the back of the brain first. Remember what that part of the brain is asking? How's my body doing? This is where the hungries come from. If you're really hungry, you care less for relationships, don't you? You know you do. And it's probably not the time you're ripping out your taxes to do because you just don't have the cognitive or emotional bandwidth to deal with that stuff till you get something to eat. Gives it to the feeling brain very quickly. The feeling brain and the primal brain, they work as a team, gives it to the feeling brain. Remember what it's asking. Am I relationally okay? Do the people here, do my important people accept me, love me, care for me, see me, validate me, hear me? Now, if the answer to one or both of those questions, am I physically okay, am I relationally okay? If the answer to one or both of those questions is no, we get a wall going up. We have really limited access to the thinking brain. This is why whenever we're in big feelings, all of us, we will say things and do things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. Think of it like a seesaw. If you've got lots of activity at the back of the brain, so the primal brain, the feeling brain's really active because they don't feel safe, there's something going on, there's not a lot of activity in the thinking brain. So they're not going to be able to learn, they're not going to be able to make good decisions, and they're certainly not going to be able to think through consequences because the brain is in survival mode. And when it's in survival mode, it only cares about the next 15 seconds. So this is why when your kiddos are in really big feelings or big behaviour, and you say, if you do that, there's no ice cream for dessert tonight, it's not going to land because that brain is going, dessert might be 6 hours away. That brain is going, what is this 6 hours you speak of? All I care about is right now. It's not going to care. What we want is to calm that back of the brain, bring the thinking brain back. Then we have them. Now here's the rub with the thinking brain. The thinking brain won't be fully developed in girls until they're early to mid-20s and in boys until they're closer to 30. So we've got a long time to get. Are your mamas the boys or are your dads the boys? What are you? I've got 2 kids. I've got my daughter's 21. My son's 26. His thinking brain is starting to arrive, and it's really beautiful. It's beautiful. But on too many days before now, he's living a very grown-up life, in a very grown-up relationship, in a very grown-up job. But on so many days, I look at them both and I go, she's the grown-up. She's the one who's thinking things through and making all the sensible decisions. But it's a good difference. It's a good difference. We don't want them to be the same. The reason, one of the things I say is if I want someone on my team to build a plan to keep me out of trouble, I want her on my team. Lots of thinking brain intrusion, thinking things through, being logical, rational. But if it all goes belly up, which it does regularly, you know that, I want him on my team. Because with less thinking brain intrusion, they're able to think more creatively and abstractly. And I've seen it so many times because they don't have that thinking brain intruding, going, that'll never work, that'll never work. They just go for it. So it's a good difference. What it means is we're just going to have to hold on, buckle up, because this is a long journey and we're in it for the long game. There is no hurry here. Even us, with our fully developed thinking brains, we sometimes have limited access to our thinking brain. It's because we have a fully developed thinking brain that we can kind of clutch it like that. So if we don't get the Kit Kat in the checkout aisle at Woolies, we're not going to body slam on the ground, are we? Because there's enough thinking brain there going, you don't want to do that. I mean, we want to do it, but we don't do it, right? Kids don't have it because they haven't got that full development yet. So they're just doing what kids do. That's okay. And the reason this happens is because every time they go into big feelings, it's an invitation for us to co-regulate. It's an invitation for us to come closer. Kids can't learn to manage big feelings unless we let them have big feelings. You can't teach self-regulation. You can't teach it. It's like learning to walk or learning to play tennis or learning to drive. We don't go, all right, kids, look, we're going to show you some really snappy YouTube videos on how to drive a car. I'm going to tell you everything I know. Okay, there we go, done. Chuck in the keys, go for goals. We told you everything. We don't do that. The only way they can learn to drive is by us doing it with. And we do 100 hours, right? We feel every minute of those 100 hours. But even then, it can be a little bit fragile for them. Walking, we don't say to babies, all right, baby, I'm going to teach you how to walk. Just watch me. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, go. The only way they can learn to walk is by actually trying to walk and activating those neural pathways in the brain. Same with self-regulation. Can't teach it, can't teach it. They have to experience being brought from every time we come in and take them from big feelings to calm in a way that feels really loving and in a way that means they're not alone. We're actually building those really important neural pathways so eventually they can do it by themselves. If we don't do that, they just don't have those pathways. And as adults, we've had to learn to self-regulate, right? Because a lot of us didn't get that co-regulation, so we just put a lid on it. Or we found other ways to deal with that white-hot threat response. Maybe we went online shopping. Maybe we went gambling. Maybe we ate food. We don't want our kids to do that, so we're going to build these pathways. So the way to think of big feelings is it's an invitation for us to do the work. It's a good thing. And I can say that smugly now, having been through it, come out the other end. But it is so tough when your kids are in big feelings because their distress will raise distress in us. We'll feel it. I'll talk about why in a little bit. But every time, big feelings, we have to think of big feelings as a call for us to come closer. That's what it's there for. It's the brain recruiting support. It's that big feeling brain saying, this emotional load, it's too big for me. Can you get on the end of it? In the same way, big physical loads aren't good for young bodies. If we saw a kid dragging a big physical load, we wouldn't stand there, tap our foot and wait for them to go. We'd get in, we'd give them a hand. Big emotional loads aren't good for young brains. So the brain goes into big feelings, and because it's the feeling brain, it doesn't always do it in a polished way. It's going to be a bit rough about it. It's going to be messy and clumsy. Brains go, I'd rather be seen in a really bad way. I don't have time for this polished stuff. I don't know how to do it. I'd rather be seen in a bad way than not be seen at all. The very worst thing for a young person, for any of us, is to be alone in distress. So the brain goes into big feelings as a call for us to come closer. And I know it doesn't always feel like it when they're using big behaviour and spicy words to get you to back off, but that's actually what it's there for. So the way to think of big feelings is it's like the brain saying, hey, now would be a really good time to show me how this regulation thing works. Pretty much guarantee it's never a good time for us, but brains don't care for timing. So we want to change the way we think about big feelings. It's okay. It's completely safe. Now, this is one of the reasons traditional discipline doesn't work. Anything that emotionally or physically separates a young child from their important adult, so physical separation, time out, thinking chair, thinking square, emotional separation, shame. Who do you think you are? You should know better. Shouty, rousey voices, angry faces, consequences that don't make sense. Anything that does that is going to drive the brain into bigger distress, because that brain that has gone into big feelings to get us to notice, to get us to come closer, is going to go, wait, we're in a bit of trouble here, because this important big person we've recruited for support doesn't get it. And even worse than that, they're turning against us. What's the brain going to do? The feelings brain is going to go, don't worry, I've got you. I'm going to load you up with even more super body fuel so you can fight them really hard or run really fast out of here. It's going to make their felt distress even bigger. The problem with that is we actually lose access to the thinking brain right now. It works though, doesn't it? It works. And I recognise there's a credibility problem here, because we, my psychologists, my profession, we were the ones who were saying for decades, got a really good idea, you guys. When your kid's acting up, put him in time out, get shouty rousey. You'll get a quiet kid back. It's a cracker of an idea. And we had all the research. And we showed parents all the research that says you put a kid in time out, you use consequences, you're going to get a quiet kid back. But we made a mistake. And I recognise we're also the same people going, okay, so all that stuff we told you, don't listen to it because it's wrong, but now we've got a really good idea and this one actually works. It actually does work because we see inside the brain. We made a mistake the first time round because we were confused. Kids will do anything to restore proximity back to their important adults, to restore proximity back to the crowd, back to their tribe. So they'll put a lid on it. They'll come back. But we've been confusing quiet children for calm children. And we don't want to do that, because unless the brain is truly calm, safe, and the body is truly calm, we actually lose access to the thinking brain. What this means, we can't teach them, we can't lead them, we can't guide them in any meaningful way, because the part of the brain that learns, it's not available when they're in that state. A bigger problem here is what we're actually doing is we are squashing the one thing we need to lead them. We're compromising it, which is the attachment relationship. We can't lead them if they aren't attached. What we're doing effectively is saying, you know, when things go big and if things get messy, don't come to me because I can't handle it. And we all have a preservation instinct, right? We don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be, we don't want to lose the connection of their important people. So they'll keep it to themselves. And it won't be long before your kids, you'll only find out the stuff that you find out really accidentally or the stuff they let you know. And we don't want that. We can't guide them if they won't come to us. So we want to make it really safe. We don't want convenient kids. We want kids who are willing to come to us and open up to us and turn and face their stuff. So we have to be really safe adults. We're going to talk about how to do that. Now, that's the picture of the brain, the seesaw. So what we have to remember is when anyone's in big feelings, there's the back of the brain is up, the thinking brain is down. Whenever a child is in big feelings, or a teen, when I say kids, I mean children and adolescents. Whenever a young person is in big feelings, it's a sign of a brain that has registered threat and a body getting ready to respond. What does that young brain need? To be brought back to safety. How do we do that? Through relationship, through connection. They're no different to us. We lose our minds, and we do. The example I give, because I think it's one we can often relate to, and remember, we have fully developed thinking brains. Some of us might not have had enough co-regulation when we were younger, so we'll find other ways to manage those big feelings. That's okay. We didn't have this information back then. We still say things we shouldn't do things that we wouldn't ordinarily do. We lose our minds. We lose our thinking minds. So let me give you this scenario. Let's say you've had a rubbish day at work, a terrible day. You open your door, you're going home, you open your door, your house looks like a crime scene, which it did not look like at 7 o'clock this morning when you left. And over there on the couch is your old enough to know better crew talking about their very busy day because they've been on holidays, haven't they? Oh, how many swims did we go for? Because I am exhausted, you guys. And did we watch 3 movies? Or I can't even think. I am so tired. I'm shattered. And they look over at you and they don't notice your head full of steam because you're walking over the remains of their busy day. They don't go, hey, Mum, hey, Dad, it's so good to see you. They look over at you and what do they say? You know what they say. There it is. Yeah, we can all relate. What's for dinner? You don't hear what's for dinner. No, you do not. You hear welcome to hell. We're so pleased you're here to serve us. And sometimes we might shout. We might say things we wouldn't ordinarily, and we might stomp around like there's nothing else to do. What would it be like if one of those people came over to us and said, whoa, lady, I don't think so. That is not how we do things here. You can march yourself outside. You can have a very good think about the way you've just behaved. And when you're ready to apologise, you can come back in. And because the only thing we've got to make you behave yourself is to make you feel bad, you're doing dinner. And that glass of wine you were going to pour yourself, wine is just for good ladies. There is no wine for you tonight. What would we be like? There is not a cell in your body that will go, you know what, team, you're absolutely right. If you could just all write down your dinner orders, because you're all going to want something different, they'll all want something different. While you do that, I'm just going to whip around, tidy things up, because this will go so much more smoothly if we are in a tidy space. No, you are not. You're probably going to go bigger. On the other hand, what would it be like if one of those people came over and said, you look like you've had a shocker. Do you want to go upstairs, have a shower? We'll do dinner. Oh, I don't even know, but I think it would be really nice. Or, you look like you've had a shock. How about I make you a cup of tea? Do you want to talk about it? We've got dinner. Are you okay? Talk to me. You know what we'd do? Really quickly, we'll come back from the edge of the ledge, won't we? Really sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. Oh, I've just had the biggest day. Why? Because your relational brain is now safe. It's saying, I'm seen, I'm validated, I'm heard. You don't need consequences. You didn't do it because you're a psychopath or because you don't know the appropriate rules of social engagement with young people. It's because in that moment, your brain registered threat. Oh, I'm never going to get to bed. Look at this house. I'm not being heard. I'm not being seen. Nobody's listening to me. I'm about to miss out on something important, which is a clean house and a break. And it just goes. Luckily, we've got enough thinking brain access, it kind of clutches it, that we're not throwing things around. Sometimes you might, I don't know, no judgment. But you know what I'm saying? Now, we expect so much more of our children, but that's what's happening. It's not because they're bad kids, and it's not because you're bad parents. It's development is what it is. Now, there are a number of reasons that we can all lose our thinking brains. The first one is when we're in threat. If you want to take photos of any of the slides, absolutely go ahead. Is when we feel threat. This is actually the reason this happens instinctively. This is why it happens. If there's someone chasing you who wants to hurt you, your brains are here to keep us safe. Brain's here to keep us alive. That's their priority. They're not here to keep us happy. They're not here for play, for learning things that don't matter. They're not here for relationships, unless that matters right now for my survival. Brains are here to keep us safe. So when brains don't feel safe, they hoard every resource in service of survival. When a brain is in survival mode, it only cares about the next 15 seconds, getting you safe. Only when brains feel truly safe will they then go, okay, we probably don't need all these resources, so I'm going to free some up for play, learning, compassion, empathy, connection. But when they don't feel safe, they hoard it. Now, if there was someone chasing you who wanted to hurt you, your brain would hoard all those resources. It doesn't want your thinking brain taking precious time, using precious nanoseconds doing thinking brain stuff. Wait, should I just turn around and should I just find out what's going on? Should I just be nice about it? Or your thinking brain's there going, can you not scream? People have got cameras, you know. It doesn't want you doing any of that. So it shuts it down, puts us into survival mode. It's going to position us in the best possible position to get safe, because we're not going to care about the consequences except getting free right now. The other thing is we can lose our thinking brain when it's a perceived threat. That's anxiety. So an anxious brain can't learn. An anxious brain isn't going to make great decisions. It's capable of it. Absolutely it is. But in the moment, it's going to be a little bit swamped. The other thing is an overload of current resources. That's stress. So think of it like we all have a stress tank. We all have a stress tank. When our stress tank is empty enough, it doesn't need to be completely empty, but when it's empty enough, we can handle stuff. But when our stress tank is up to here, it doesn't take long it's not going to take much for us to completely dysregulate. Same for our kids. This is why some days they'll be at school all day and you'll hear, oh, they were so great today, they're just gorgeous. They get in the car with you and they're screaming at you. It's because you're their safe person. And now they can let out, and you say, how was your day? Or you tell them they're having fish for dinner, not chicken, whatever it is. It doesn't take anything. It's a little thing. It's not that they can't. We go, oh, they're not handling the little stuff. It's never the little stuff. It's never the little stuff. It's all the stuff that's in their nervous systems that they're carrying. We just see the one that overloads it. It's like drops in the bucket. We just see the drop that overloads it. It's the same for us. So one of the ways we're going to come at behaviour, and that we want to support them to cut to one of the tools, I suppose, we want to give them to keep themselves regulated, is to empty their stress tanks. And if you can empty your stress tank, we can do this in micro moments throughout the day. So it's not like you only empty your stress tank when you go on a holiday to Bali. You can empty it in little moments through the day. So we'll talk more about that and what that looks like. Most of the time, if your children can't regulate, it's going to be developmental. Their brains just aren't cooked yet. That thinking brain, it's got a long way to go before it's there. And the other one, it can be environmental. That's sensory overload, sensory underload, or physiological. If their bodies are tired, hungry, in pain, you know that if you've got a cracker of a headache or if you're not well, you can handle less stuff. You're going to be more likely to dysregulate. Let me talk to you about alpha behaviour. Now, alpha behaviour, all kids go through this. All kids will show you alpha behaviour at some point. Some kids stay in it for a long time. They might do it for years and years and years, but you will see evidence of this. So the reason I want to give you these strategies is because even if you don't have kids who are big alpha for a long time, the strategies are helpful for all of them. So what alpha behaviour is? Alpha behaviour is really big behaviour. It's big behaviour. So it can look like tantrums, anger, super spicy words, big pushback, big defiance. Now, when kids are in alpha, they're less likely, they tend to be more peer-oriented. So they're less likely to turn to you, their adults, or any adults. They don't always turn to their parents, but they might turn to an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent. But when kids are in alpha mode, they tend to turn away from their adults and towards their peers. That's okay. We want them turning towards their peers, but we also want them to come to us when they need to. This is really big behaviour. It comes from a lack of a felt sense of alpha presence at home. Now, this is something that will happen with all kids because they're all going to push against the boundary sometimes. What alpha's come to be misunderstood and misused in our society. What alpha must have two things. An alpha adult must have two things. An alpha must have two things. A really strong felt presence of leadership. So the child feels your capacity to lead. And a really strong felt presence of caretaking. So your child really trusts that they can rest in your care, that they're safe to rest in your care. If one or both of those things is missing, we're potentially going to see alpha behaviour because they're going to take that for themselves. If they don't trust the adults in the house to lead them, or if the boundaries feel a bit, well, I'll talk about what the boundaries will feel like in a sec. We can't lead a child who doesn't trust that they can rest in our care. They won't let us. They'll feel safer leading themselves. So these are the kids who make their own decisions. They find their own way out of trouble. And a child won't let us care for them. They won't let us care for them if they don't trust us to lead them in a way which feels okay for them. So if one or both of those things is missing, we're going to have alpha. In our adult relationships, alpha's pretty fluid. So we still have alpha relationships, but it's pretty fluid. Sometimes we're the ones who are giving directions, we're the ones leading, we're the ones preserving safety. Sometimes we are resting in the direction or care of others. It's pretty fluid. We tend to get into trouble in our adult relationships if you both want to be an alpha or nobody wants to be an alpha. I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? Does someone make a decision? That's when we tend to get stuck. So it's pretty fluid. But children and adolescents always need an adult in alpha. So alphas come to be misunderstood. When you hear the term, alpha organisation or alpha, it's not. It's come to mean leadership without caretaking. So just that. That's not alpha. That's toxic. True alpha has a really strong presence of caretaking with it and a willingness to care. Not in a way, of course, these people say, oh, but of course I care about the people in my organisation, in my whatever it is, but do the people feel it? Do the kids feel that caretaking? The way to think of it is like this. Your child is in the passenger seat, the adult's got the wheel, and the adult has to have the wheel. We don't want kids driving cars, right? If that child in the passenger seat gets any sense at all that the adult at the wheel doesn't know where they're going, doesn't know what they're doing, or is about to drive them into a ditch, what is that child going to do? They're going to take the wheel. They're going to take alpha for themselves. Alpha kids, when they're in alpha mode, they are not people pleasers. They won't recognise your authority. They'll be defiant. And all kids will do this. All kids will do this at some point. Some kids get stuck there. Now, where it tends to come from, there's two types of families I see this in, or two, it can happen, there's two conditions under which it can happen. One is when the boundaries are really strong. So the boundaries, the rules are the rules are the rules, but there's not enough felt caretaking. You're here on a weekday in the cold and the rain. You don't have to tell anyone that you care for your kids. But what their brain is going is the rules are so strict, but do you notice me when I'm unnoticeable? So there might not be enough play right now. There might not be enough joy towards them. So they're feeling where the rules are, and this will happen sometimes, right? We get stressed, we get busy, we get swamped with it all. And sometimes we just forget that we also have to notice them when they're unnoticeable. The problem with this is if the rules are really, and this is when rules are really, when they hit the boundary, it can feel like they're hitting a brick wall, but there's not enough of this soft, squishy stuff to balance it up. If brains are only seen when they hit the edges, they're going to hit the edges. Not in a deliberate way, But in our brains will say, I'd rather be seen in a really bad way than not be seen at all. If kids are not noticed, when they're unnoticeable, they will make themselves noticeable. And as adults, we can tend to do that. If you and your partner are kind of ships in the night for too long, you get cranky sometimes. You can feel disconnected. You can get snappy and snarly. That's the brain saying, hey, do you see me? Because we kind of lose the capacity to do it nicely. That can happen sometimes. So what we're looking for in that space, what the caretaker presence feels like, is play with them. It can just be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Micro moments of connection. So you don't need to have a half-hour conversation with them. It's micro moments. It's all the brain learns through repetition. So if you can have some repetitive micro moments, I love being your mum, letting your face light up when they walk in the room. Kids will walk into the room and they will look to the adult in the room. They will look to you for, are you happy to see me? What mood are you in? Are you grumpy? Or are you good? Are we going to have a good night? We do it. We all do it. Just, rubbing their back when you walk past, ruffling their hair, just touching them on the arm, just those little things that we do that just feel lovely. If there's not enough of that, they can sometimes feel a bit of an absence of caretaker joy. We all do it sometimes. The other families I see this in, I'll give you some other strategies in a sec. The other times I see this in families, and I want to say my kids have had times where they've gone into big alpha. It happens with all kids. It's just good to know what you're looking at so you can know how to respond. The other families I see this in are where there's so much caretaking. There's so much responsiveness and attention, and the parents are so involved and attentive, but the boundaries might not be as strong or might not be as defined. So this is when it feels like kids are running the show. This can also happen really easily in families when you just want peace, and it can happen, we kind of do the slow slide, we don't even realise it's happening, and then here we are. Boundaries are there to keep them safe, and that brain will be looking for the edge. If the boundary isn't there, it's just going to keep pushing to find the edge. For kids, not having clear boundaries, defined boundaries, it's like driving on the road without road rules. We think we want it for ourselves, but it's scary. It's going to be scary because we start taking things over. We're watching what everybody's doing. It just doesn't feel safe. This can happen really easily too. We drop the boundary on something because we just want the peace and we just want the dysregulation to stop. And then we come back and we try to bring the boundary up, but by now the brain has learned that you're willing to drop the boundary so it can go even bigger and bigger and bigger. And when they're in alpha mode, they don't care what you say. They'll put power on the table and they'll make you dance for it. They are not in people-pleasing mode. The problem is they'll always go one harder than you. So this is where I say don't be scared of those big feelings. When you put that boundary up, you might see really big feelings, really big behaviour. That's okay. That's okay. We just need to know where the edges are. Now, some strategies that are going to work with all kids. Well, not every strategy works with all kids, but ones to add to your toolbox. If you get a sense that they might be feeling a little bit disconnected, so they're doing lots of things that, you as soon as you pick up the phone, they're doing stuff, and they all get there sometimes. They might just need that a little boost in that felt caretaker presence. What we want to do, what tends to happen with these kids is when they're in alpha mode, they can be a bit demanding. And I don't mean screaming for it, I mean just doing stuff to get our attention. It's not attention seeking, it's attention needing, it's connection seeking. But they might just do stuff. Now, we respond to that, then they're quiet. They're not doing anything, they're not in trouble. So what we do is we tend to say, when they're quiet, not asking for anything, we turn our attention to the things that we don't get to do when they're asked, or we turn it to the kids who don't get time. Inadvertently, we're confirming their story, which is that I only get noticed when I'm noticeable, when I'm being seen. So what we want to do is turn that around. And what that can look like is where you can, recognise what they need and get there before they ask for it, and get there in abundance. Get there in abundance. So if you know that they love shooting hoops with you, and it's something you do sometimes, occasionally, or they love going to the park with you and kicking goals, or they love watching the soccer with you, whatever it is, or they love stories, you might come to them and before they ask, you go, all right, you know what, I've been missing you, bud. So tonight, we are not going to read 2 stories. We're going to read 4 stories. Count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have been thinking about you all day, and I've decided is an alpha phrase, because what we're doing is we're saying I'm in charge here. I've decided that it would be so great for us if we went to the park and kicked a soccer ball, not for 15 minutes, but for half an hour. So just go more than you usually give them. It might be that today you had a struggle with the iPad. Alpha doesn't put kids in situations they can't handle. So if your kid can't handle, I'm going to backtrack a bit. When you want them to do something, when they're in alpha mode, the more you ask them to do something and the more they say no, they've taken alpha every time. Because now what's happening is because they've decided, not because you've decided. So they might be playing with the iPad and you say, all right, it's time. Can you pack that up because it's dinner time? You've said it once. You've been ignored. Say it again just in case they didn't hear you, but make sure you get their eyes, you get their face. Now they've heard you. If you have to ask more than twice, don't, because they're taking alpha. Every time they say no to you, what's happening is because they've decided, not because of what you've decided. So this is where we come in. They're doing the very best they can. Right now, this is a young person who doesn't have the skills or the resources right now to give you what you want. So stop asking them to change the situation, and then we look at it and go, right, what do I need to do right now? We take it back. So that might look like, oh my goodness, it's so hard having to stop playing the iPad when you're having so much fun. I've decided I'm taking the iPad now, and we can circle back later. Now, you're not taking it as punishment. You're not taking it as punishment. But this is a child who can't handle giving up the iPad. So you're going to keep it for a while. Now, because you're also alpha, tomorrow you might, and you know, they're going, but when can I have the iPad? When can I have the iPad? We go, no, not yet. I'll decide when. And it doesn't mean they're going to go, okay, no worries. It's not going to look like that. You know that. I don't need to tell you that. But what you're doing, and you don't want to do it just to be mean, what you're doing is saying, I recognise that you're not able to do this right now. Then tomorrow might come, and before they ask for the iPad, you go, you know what? I know how much fun you had with the iPad yesterday. I think you're ready to put a full stop on it when it's time to. So I've decided that you can have the iPad not for 15 minutes, but for 30 minutes. So get there first, get there in abundance. I've decided is an alpha phrase. I'm not going to let you is an alpha phrase. So they might be they might be getting ready to throw something, or they might be hurting a sibling or saying something mean to a sibling. You might say, oh, I know you are so angry right now. No. So you've come in with validation. Relationship. We don't drop the boundary. We add warmth to the boundary. So we go relationship, boundary, relationship, boundary. So name what you see. I know you are so annoyed right now. No, I'm not going to let you hurt their body. No, I'm not going to let you throw the iPad. No, I'm not going to let you, whatever it is. No, I'm not going to let you. I know. You can, I can see, I can hear the words. Another one you might do is they're using big words. You can't say, don't talk to me like that. We can. But you can't decide the words they say. So ask them twice, recognise in that moment, sometimes they're shouting because they're so dysregulated. A strategy you might need to do, you might need to take on sometime, recognising that in this moment, this is a child who doesn't have the skills or the resources to do anything different. You can't ask them to lead you out of this mess right now. We have to take the lead. So what am I going to do right now to make this different? It might be something like, whoa, I can see you've got lots of yelling in you. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I've decided, and I'm not going to let you, are some phrases that you want to get comfortable with. I think it's a good idea that you get all the yelling out of you. Go for it. Keep going. I'm right here. You're not in trouble. Keep going. Now, what's happening is because we've decided, not because they've decided. You've recognised that there is absolutely nothing you can do about this right now. So rather than putting the control in their hands, we've taken it back. You might say something like, I really want to hear what you're saying. I am not going to hear you when you speak to me like that. When you're ready, we can talk. But right now, you can do what you need to do. I'm right here. You're not giving them permission to do it because they don't need your permission because they're doing it anyway. What you're doing is saying, I can handle you. So you're still holding a boundary. It's very different to just walking away or getting frustrated back and trying to get them to manage the situation. They might walk out. You might be talking to them. They might walk out. You say, come back here. We're not finished yet. They keep walking. You ask them again, they keep walking. Now they've taken alpha because what's happening is because they've made the decision. That might look like, so very quickly, we have to find a way to let go of the power struggle because we're pulling, come back, they're pulling, no, we're pulling, you've got to come back here, I'm in charge, they're pulling. You don't need to get the final word in. You don't need to struggle for power because the fact that you're the adult, you're the powerful, you're the one in control, you're the one in charge. You don't need them to do what you're saying to prove that you're in charge. So let it go. Your power is in your restraint. Keep everybody safe, keep them safe, but you don't need to win. You don't need to win. You don't need the final word. So what that looks like is you recognise very quickly that they're not about to do what you want them to do. So you take back power by kind of making out that it's your idea. Okay, I can see this is not the time for it. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea that you take a break. We can circle back to this later. I'm right here when you're ready. I'm right here. My own daughter, one of the big alpha spaces we got into was when she was an adolescent. You know, they do this thing when they're adolescents and like they want. And one of their big developmental goals is to be separate from you and to prove they're separate and independent. So they want to do something. And I'm like, no, I'm not okay with you doing that. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, well, because you give the reasons once and then it just becomes, you know, you say that thing you never said you were going to say. Well, because I said so. I've given you the reasons and that's it. She's like, but why? And it's like this. And I would get to a point and I'd go, you know what? My darling, I don't need to argue with you. I don't need to argue with you. I know you're going to make the right decision. Inside, I'm going, I hope she makes the right decision. Sometimes they made most of the time they made the right decision. Sometimes they didn't. But it wouldn't matter. They're going to make the decision they're going to make anyway. But we've told them how we feel. In that space, there is not a thing I can say that she doesn't already know. But what I'm saying is, I actually can handle trusting you to make the right decision. So she's 21. Last year, she came to me, kind of out of the blue. I don't know if she was talking about it with girlfriends. And she said, Mum, you know the worst thing you ever did to us? And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, should I just settle in? Because you've probably got a shopping list at 21 years. And I said, all right, hit me, baby. What is it? What's the worst thing I've ever done to you? And she said, when you used to say, I know you're going to make the right decision. You know, occasionally you have those moments where you just feel like you've cracked it completely accidentally a lot of the time. And because what she's saying is, Kids who I've given her something that she doesn't want to lose. Kids with nothing to lose have nothing to lose. I've told her, I've given you my trust, I've given you freedom, I've given you an opportunity to show independence of thought, and I can actually handle that. I don't need to convince you of my truth. I don't need you to tell me you're going to do the right thing, because I've given you a whole bunch of stuff that you're probably not going to want to lose. And I can handle this situation. Even if it all goes bad, I can handle it. So it's not like we're giving a free pass. We're just taking back that control. We're taking back that sense of power here. So keep those in mind. I've decided, I think it's a good idea, and I'm not going to let you. But remember only to use I'm not going to let you when you can do something about it. I'm not going to let you speak to me like that. Really, what are you going to do? You can't do that. You can say, I'm not going to let myself be spoken to like that. And then you move away and you say, I'm right here, I will circle back. You still stay in emotional proximity, you let them know they're there. I want to hear you, I'm not going to listen to you when you're speaking to me like that. I'm not going to let myself be spoken to like that. I wouldn't do that for a really young child, I'd do that with an adolescent, because I think young ones just need us closer. But recognise your power is in your restraint. I think I should also say at this point, you will lose your mind at your kids more than anyone else on the planet. So I'm giving you all these strategies, and sometimes you'll be able to do them and sometimes you won't. Sometimes you will just be a screaming mess, because their distress, and it's all connected to the attachment system. So when a child registers distress, when children are born, when human babies are born, they're born not able to protect themselves from threat. So as children, they have a remarkable capacity. The way they stay safe is by wiring into a stronger, braver adult who can do the protecting for them. That's you. The attachment system, it's the attachment system that keeps them alive, because that attachment system is complete when we wire into them to keep them safe from danger. So when a young child registers threat, because other animal babies, when they register threat, they can fight or bite or run away, but our babies can't. So that attachment system is there to keep them safe, and it stays even when they grow. So we're wired when they're in distress, when they have a felt sense of threat, and taking the iPad away counts as missing out on something important. You can say, yeah, but what's the threat there? Missing out on something important. It counts as threat to the brain. They send out distress signals. They cry, they scream, they make themselves seen. That raises distress in the attachment adult to mobilise us with the physiological resources to fight for them or flee with them. So if they are in actual danger, if there's someone trying to hurt them, or if we need to get them out of the way of, carry them out of a burning building, that attachment system is going to gear us up with the strength, the power, the speed to be able to fight for them or flee with them. So it's there to keep them safe. The problem is, because our brains are so primal, this also happens even when there's no real threat, but a psychological one, like, oh, well, I'm missing out on the iPad, I'm being interrupted, I think you're angry at me, or whatever it is. So sometimes in the absence of true threat, that distress signal, that fight or flight in them raises fight or flight in us. Rather than fighting for, we fight with, because we've got nothing to fight for them for. There's no threat. And that flee with becomes flee from. We just want to walk away. We just want to leave the space. That is really normal. This is why we feel it when they're distressed. This is why we get cranky, angry, irritated, frustrated. It's really normal. It's part of the same system that keeps them alive. It's okay if that happens sometimes. This is not about perfection. What's important is that we repair really quickly. So come back in straight up, and don't leave the repair up to them. You're alpha. You're the one with the resources, and you're the one who decides what you do. Come in really quickly. I'm really sorry I yelled. That must have been really confusing, me yelling at you to stop yelling. I'm going to work on that. It doesn't mean that you're taking responsibility for their behaviour, but we need to take responsibility for our behaviour. And the other thing you don't want to do is sell it as their fault. Well, I wouldn't yell if you weren't all of this. The reason we yell is because we're out of control, not because of what they do. Okay, so let me show you this. This is the house model. It's from my latest book. It's based on science, polyvagal theory, the work of Dr. Stephen Porges. It's a theory it informs a lot of our mental health work, but it's such a complicated theory. It took me months to get my head around it. But it's such an important theory, I think, for families. I wanted a way to bring it into the hands of parents and kids really quickly. So this is a very simplified model, but it will help you and your children understand why they feel what they do and why they feel the feelings they feel and why they do the things they do. So the way it works is there are three ways our brains and bodies work together to protect us. Think of this like a 3-level house. When we're on the top level, that blue creature, that's the amygdala, the part of the brain in the feeling brain that is like our threat sensor. It's always scanning, looking for trouble. Now, when we're on the top level of this house, our brains feel safe, our bodies feel calm. So this is for you, your children, everybody on the planet. I can play and learn. I can only play and learn when I'm on the top level. I can make good decisions. I can connect and be connected to. I enjoy doing the things I usually enjoy doing, or being with the people I usually enjoy being with, or being on my own if I'm on my own. Life's pretty good here. Now, when the brain registers threat, it takes us over to the stairs. We want them to catch themselves just before they slide down the stairs. We want to catch ourselves just before we slide down the stairs. We can't always do that. Sometimes I'll slide down the stairs. Our brain will slide down the stairs, take us with it. On the second level is where brains and bodies are working together to get us to safety through movement. So this is an activated state. Our brains are getting our bodies ready to fight the danger or run away from the danger. So our bodies are activated. Our bodies will feel racy, pacey, agitated, jittery, hyperactive, fidgety, restless. You'll know when you're on the second level because you can't sit still. You're full of energy. For kids, I say, it feels like your body's too busy. You might have hits and kicks and spicy words in you that you would never use on the top level because we've lost our thinking brain on the second level. It can feel like anger, irritation, frustration, overwhelm, panic, dread, anxiety happens here. So this is fight or flight. So most of your big feelings that feel so big, all of your big feelings that feel big are going to be on this level, in them and us. Now, if I can't get to safety, or it's not a good idea to be big, the brain will go small. It will head over to the stairs, drop me to the bottom level. On the bottom level is where brains and bodies are working together to get me to safety by hiding or being small and still. So this is like a free state. So on the bottom level can feel like sadness, loneliness, hopelessness, helplessness. There's a sense that I'm just going through the motions. I'm a bit numb. Depression happens here. Literally, I depress my needs, I depress my feelings, my energy is depressed. My body feels tired, heavy, lethargic, listless. This can happen. When this happens, I just withdraw from the world, so I just go into myself a little bit. I don't enjoy the things I usually enjoy doing or hanging out with the people I usually hang out with. I just pull back, I'm small and still. Now, there's no wrong level to be on. And we actually go up and down the levels all day, up and down the levels. You might wake up really early, you're in a really good space, but you've got to be at work by 9 o'clock for a really important meeting. So you're going to work, but the traffic's rubbish. So You're worried about not getting to work on time. That's going to put your relational safety on the line. You might be rejected, shamed, humiliated, judged. Probably not, but the brain doesn't care about that. But it's starting to take you to the second level because it's getting you ready to fight the people who want to go you. Maybe it's getting you ready to park your car, run to work. It's not rational at this point. But you're tapping the wheel, you're jiggling, you're getting irritated at the other drivers. And what idiot puts a really important work meeting at 9 o'clock on a work day? Who does that? Because you've started to lose your thinking brain. You're getting irritated at people who cost you that 10 minutes this morning. It's 10 to 9. You're still 20 minutes away from work, even on a really good day. There's no way you're going to get to work on time. There's no point being racy and pacey and agitated. Your brain's going to take you to the bottom level. It's going to conserve your energy. Now, it's just whatever. So you're not racy, pacey, jiggling. You're just sitting there like whatever. Just going through the motions. You're getting closer to work. Now your brain's starting to think about, well, I'm going to have to open the door and people are going to see me and I'm going to have to say, sorry, team, I was late, it was traffic. And everybody says traffic, you know that because you've done that yourself, except today you're legit, it really is traffic. So you're starting to agitate back to the second level, getting a bit racy-pacey. Then you get to work, you open the door and they go, oh, thank gosh you're here. Come on, save yourself. Did you get stuck in that traffic? Heard it was rubbish. Come and sit down, got you a seat. You're back on the top level. What would it be like if you got to work and they're there going, it depends how much, you might be on the second level, go, well, if you idiots would just help me out, I wouldn't have to. Or you probably, what you'd do is you'd go to the bottom level. You'd just sink. You wouldn't probably be contributing things. You might not be taking in as much. Because you're just protecting yourself. So we go up and down the levels all day. If you're in big pain or if you're not well, the bottom level's a good place to be. If someone's chasing you who wants to hurt you, you want to be on the second level because that is going to charge your body up with adrenaline, cortisol, to get you in the best physical position to fight them or run away from them. But if you wake up at night and you hear people in your house, you don't know if you can outfight them. You don't know if you can outrun them. So what's your brain going to do? It's going to shut you down. So you will not move. You'll barely hear yourself breathing. You won't cough accidentally, sneeze accidentally. It's going to take you to hidden. So that's the idea of it. Now, this is a mistake we've been making with traditional discipline. We've been thinking we've been sending kids to the top level, but we've actually been sending them to the bottom. Bottom level kids often are no trouble at all if we don't notice, but we want to pick them up because it's just not a good space for them to be. Go there sometimes, but we don't want them to get stuck there. The other thing about this model is wherever kids are, if they're on the second level or the bottom level, we have to go and get them. That's co-regulation. They can't get to the top level by themselves. And I'll talk about how to do that and what that looks like. Something else about this model, they will pull you to the second level. The second level is a lonely place to be for a feeling brain. It wants to recruit support. Brains feel safest when they're with. This is why we start to, when they're in big feelings, we can start to feel ourselves being pulled down there. We're getting agitated, anxious if they're anxious, they've got anxiety. We start to feel it. We can't, so this is where I say, when they're in big feelings, if you can take a minute, take a minute. You want to make sure you've got really solid top level energy. Breathing is the most powerful way to get to the top level. I'll talk more about that in a second. You can do it in micro breaks. You don't need to just, spend half an hour on the top level. Do it in micro breaks. Regulate your nervous system. And I'll talk about how in a sec. Come down, then we collect them. We bring them back up. You can't push them up the stairs. Wherever the adult is, we will potentially also bring kids there. And you know this, if you're a bit stressed and you come home a bit stressed and then everybody's having a harder time getting to bed because they're all a bit wired, it's because we've probably pulled their nervous systems down a little bit. If we get shouty and rousey, we can't shout them up the stairs or rouse them up the stairs. That's waiting for them to do the work. We're trying to send them up the stairs. They can't. They can't regulate themselves on their own. When we get shouty and rousey, we will either push them deeper into the second level so they'll start getting shouty and rousey back, or we'll drop them to the bottom level. and they'll put themselves away to get to felt safety. We don't want to do that. So we co-regulate. What does that look like? Actually, before I do it, there are things that, before I go into that, there are things that will help all kids stay on the top level. We want to give them these strategies. So the big ones, actually the biggest one, is their relationship with you. The best thing you can do for your children is enjoy them. They see themselves through your eyes. When we get annoyed, they experience themselves as annoying. When we ignore them, they experience themselves as not mattering. When we experience joy in their presence, they experience themselves as delightful. They don't want to lose that. They'll work harder to keep it. So those little micro moments of joy, taking joy in their presence. I love being your mum, I love being your dad. Gosh, I missed you today, whatever it is. Play. They have to play. One of the things that's driving anxiety, which is a second level response, is there's too much structure. They need to play. When they play, they're actually muscularising their capacity to go top level, second level, top level again. They play, there's rising tension, they get back up because it's safe and it's in their control. Mindfulness, if they're into that, if they're not into it, let it go. Rhythm. Rhythm is, brains love rhythm. Brains associate rhythm with safety. When we're in utero, we'll never have a greater felt sense of safety because we are physiologically, all our physiological needs are taken care of at the same, and we're inside our attachment person, you can't get closer. At the same time, we're hearing the rhythm of our mother's heartbeat and feeling the rhythm of our mother's heartbeat. So rhythm and felt safety get wired together, they get locked together. Have you ever tried not to do something rhythmic with a baby, let alone an upset baby? I've actually tried, in the name of science, to just stand completely still with an upset baby. We actually dysregulate. So when we rock, tap, sway, what we're actually doing is calming our nervous system so we can recalibrate theirs. It's why we pace, tap, move, sway when we're anxious. We're trying to calm our nervous systems. So listening to music, swinging, swaying, rocking, swimming is a really rhythmic experience. Walking. One of the things I say, especially for older kids, this is one of the ways I take care of my own mental health. Get a playlist together of songs that will, when you walk at a fast enough pace to get you just breathless, or if they're runners. So you've got rhythm of sound, rhythm of movement, and it's going to keep you going. Their playlist might need to be tweaked again because you think some songs are fast enough to run to, but they're not. They just don't work. But that's another way to do it. So if you know they've got to do something, if you feel like your house is getting a little bit wired, put some music on, just bring some rhythm in. Time in nature, time barefoot outside, time with pets. Time with people who feel good to be around are all going to help them, but ask them. So have the picture of the house in your head or draw it and say, when do you feel calm and safe and happy? When do you feel at your best? Ask them. We don't ask them enough. What helps you stay like that? What makes it hard to stay feeling like that? What do I do that makes it hard to stay like that? What do I do that helps? Then we go to the second level. And I don't mean it like a job interview. I'm saying like just try and get, what you want to do is try and map it out in your mind. What makes you really cross? What makes you anxious? What makes you sad? Whatever it is. When do you feel angry, upset, annoyed? Can you think of a time you felt like that? What helped you feel better? What we're looking for is what will help them stay on the top level. What made it harder to get back to the top level? What did I do that helped? What did I do that didn't? When have you felt sad and a bit helpless and hopeless? What was it like in your body? So we just want to explore their feeling. If we don't give kids the words or the images they need, what we say is everybody feels like this sometimes. They'll put their own story to it, which is, I'm just a bad kid. I just can't cope. I'm just a naughty kid. I just get into trouble. And we don't want to do that. So we say, yeah, everybody feels like this sometimes. What we want to do is find a way for you to stay on the top level as long as you can and get back there. Now, the quickest way to the top level is strong, steady breathing. Strong, steady breathing. It's the most powerful way to calm the feeling brain. Kids hate it. Like they hate it. I go into schools and I talk to kids, and whenever I talk about anxiety or the feeling brain, I say, you know, the most powerful way to be the boss of your brain is strong, steady breathing. But honestly, though, who thinks it's a load of rubbish? Who's even tried it and you think it's a load of rubbish? I used to. Safe to put your hand up, you can tell me. I used to. There's 2 reasons kids hate breathing. The breathing we want is a slower out breath. A slower out breath. So in and slower. What they tend to do when we say, okay, just take a breath, and I mean, you know, if you're knee deep in big feelings and someone says just breathe, you're just going to throw something at them, aren't you? Because it's just not what your body wants. But what they tend to do when we say breathe is they go, so they're doing the opposite, and that's actually going to dysregulate them. It changes the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen against the way the is going to make them feel safe. The other reason they hate it is because the science isn't clear. It just feels like something Pinteresty and voodoo that grown-ups say to kids sometimes because we don't know what else to say. So we've got to give them the science. We have to give them the science. It's the most powerful way to calm. We say your brain has 2 parts to it. Just divide it into 2 for them. So I learned something really interesting tonight. You know your brain's got 2 parts. You've got a feeling part at the back and a thinking part at the front. They have to work as a team. But it's like a seesaw. When you go into really big feelings, your thinking brain shuts down. Happens in all of us. This is why we all say or do things that we wouldn't normally do. It's because we don't have much of a thinking brain now. What you want, there's no wrong feelings to feel. You want to feel your feelings, but you want to make sure your thinking brain's on board. Strong, steady breathing calms your feeling brain, brings your thinking brain back. You might still be anxious, angry, upset, but now you've got your thinking brain to keep you out of trouble. Most powerful way to do that is strong, steady breathing. It's like a lullaby for your feeling brain. Now, they're not going to be able to do it unless they've practiced it lots when they're calm. Because when the brain is in survival mode, it actually is hoarding oxygen. It's saying to the body, can you stop using oxygen on strong, steady breaths? We might need that in case we need to fight or flee. Can you go short and shallow? So it's actually instinctively driving them to go and over-breathe. So what we want to do is reverse that. But the brain isn't going to be able to do it unless they've practiced it lots, because that brain is laser focused on keeping them safe. It's in survival mode. And we say, but I've been breathing literally since the day I was born. Like, why do I need to practice? And I say, yeah, but you haven't been deliberately breathing. You've just been breathing without really thinking about it, but you haven't been deliberately breathing or breathing in a different way to what your body thinks it needs. So we want them to practice strong, steady breathing. Now, they're not going to be able to do it. So in the meantime, we need to do it for them. So I'm bringing you back to this picture of the brain. Actually, just in case you want photos, let's just go a little bit back. What do we do when they're on the second level and they're in really big feelings? We have to think of it like an emotional storm. You can't stop a storm from storming. You don't tell a storm to calm down. You don't even try and understand when a storm is just circling and it's raging. That's not the time to understand why a storm is storming. And it's certainly not the time to lay a garden, so it's not the time for teaching, guiding. What do? We batten down the hatches. We keep everybody safe. We deal with the fallout when the storm passes. What they're looking for is an anchor. An anchor. They're feeling really dysregulated and stormy and messy. They're looking for an anchor. Anchors stay attached and grounded. That's what they do. They don't try and understand anything. They don't try and change anything. They're just trying to steady the situation. So what I'd invite you to do is, when your child is in big feelings, recognise that this is a child who is in overwhelm. They don't have the resources or the skills to pull themselves out of it right now. So they're going to need us. So what does that look like? First of all, we prioritise relationship. We recognise this is a brain in distress. We want to bring it back to calm. The most powerful way to do that is with you. We want to bring that relational brain back safety. Rather than asking them to lead us out of the situation, I just need you to calm down, I just need you to do this, I just need you to do that. You don't actually need them to do anything because you're in charge. Shift from what do I need them to do to what do I need to do right now to lead us out of this situation. The first is bringing a felt sense of safety to it. So, how do we do that? Back to this one. For every part of the brain to do its job, it needs the part behind it to be calm and rested. So that primal brain needs to be happy. Their bodies need to feel okay. If their bodies aren't okay, their feeling brain's going to dysregulate, and as soon as that happens, we've got no thinking brain. We often make the mistake of trying to come the front door. Well, you need to calm down. What do you need? What are you doing? Do you think that's a good idea? I'm going to put you in the thinking chair so you can have a good think about what you do. They're not thinking. They're not thinking. You know what they're thinking? How unfair you are. And how could you, and no one understands them. No one's ever been put in time out and gone, yeah, I was probably out of line there. They'll do what they need to do to come back here because there's a need there that hasn't been met. And this is why when the consequences, I need to put consequences in place so next time they do it, they'll think of the consequences before they do it. The information isn't even getting to the consequences part of the brain. That's why consequences don't work either. So we recognise that the feeling brain has hijacked the brain. So right now, you've got the most impulsive, instinctive part of the brain driving it. This is why we can't ask them, we can't reason with them, we can't logic with them, we can't go the front door, we've got to go the back door. We have to get their bodies back first. We bring calm, strong, steady breathing. They're not going to be able to do it, you do it for them. So what you're doing when you co-regulate is you're actually calming your nervous system so we can recalibrate theirs. All we humans need when we're in big distress is another calm mammal body. But there's actually something more important you're doing. Let me tell you about it. When you take a strong, steady breath, so what you want to do is make sure you take a strong, steady breath. You're activating a nerve called the vagus nerve. It's actually a pair of nerves. It's the longest pair of nerves, leaves the back of the brain, goes down the spine, passes the heart and lungs, lands in the tummy. It's like a brake for our nervous system. So if you've got older kids, you can explain this to them as well. It's like a brake for our nervous system. Normally it's got its brakes on our heart. Our heart rates would be 100 beats a minute all the time if it wasn't for our vagal brake. If you have a really stressful job, sometimes we lose vagal tone. So rather than being able to go take the brake off, put the brake on, take the brake off, put the brake on, it just gets a little bit slack. And this is why we can just feel stressed even when we're not stressed. We kind of go into stress overdrive because our bodies are just, that vagal brake is off the heart and that neurochemical fight-flight fuel is just surging through us all the time. So when there is a child in distress, it's going to register distress in us. It just will, because our brain goes, remember it's primal, it goes, well, there's a kid in distress, you might need to fight for or flee with that child, so I better load you up with this fight-flight fuel so you can do that. So the brakes come off the heart because that heart is then working to pump all of that fight-flight fuel through our body, needs to get to the extremities, to our arms so they can fight, to the legs so they can flee, so that heart's pumping fast. Now, the vagus nerve is also connected to our neck, the muscles of our face and our voice. So you don't even know you're doing this, but you're doing this. When our brain registers through our vagus nerve comes off the heart, our neck stiffens. You don't notice it, and sometimes it's imperceptible. It's not, our conscious brain doesn't even notice it, but their nervous systems will notice it. It's called neuroception. It's below awareness. Our nervous systems are talking to each other every minute of every day. You know, you'll just notice sometimes someone just do a little flinch and you'll go, oh, they didn't like that, or it's a jarring. So our neck stiffens because our brains are organising us to look for exits or signs of danger. Our face tightens. Sometimes it tightens a lot. You did what? No, I need you to come back here. We need to talk about this. You can't speak to me like that. But even when what do we do when we're trying to hold on to ourselves because we know that's not going to work? So we've been told, and we've been telling people, you've got to use a calm face, calm body. So we think we're using a calm face, we go neutral. I know you don't want to do this. I know this is really big for you. We also, because it's connected to our voice, we go low monotone. I know you don't. I can see how angry you are. I know this is really big for you. Come on, why don't you sit down? We can talk about it. Because our bodies are getting ready for a growl. Or we go high monotone. I know you don't want to do this. I can see how angry you are. Come on, why don't you just come with me and we'll sit down, we'll talk. And you know, some people just live in that range. So we think, my kids go, Mum, my kids don't know about this stuff, but when they go, Mum, you're doing the voice. And it's usually when I'm saying, no, I know none of you got to the dishwasher. No, it's fine. I know none of you got to, I know. And they're like, Mum, you're doing the voice. Because I'm not happy. I'm a bit stressed. So we think we're using a calm voice, calm face, calm posture, but it's actually sending signals of danger. It's not going to come across as a calm face, calm voice, calm posture. Their brains are constantly looking for signs of safety and signs of danger. When our voice is neutral and our face is neutral, they can't see anything. And if you had the experience, it's like, but I'm validating you. I'm doing all the validating things. I'm naming it and I'm doing all the things. And they're going, just stop it. You don't understand. It's not the words, it's the presence. What they're saying is, I actually know that you are not as calm as you're trying to make yourself out to be. So when we take a strong, and they're probably not wrong, when we take a strong, steady breath, the vagus nerve goes back on our heart, our neck softens. You won't even feel it, but the nervous system will notice it. It's a difference between me speaking to you like that and me speaking to you like that. I don't know if you notice. But if you are there, just try straightening your neck and then it's not floppy, it's just soft, it's relaxed. When you are in front of someone and you might be feeling a rising tension, even if you can just soften your neck, it's going to start sending those signals of social engagement. Our neck softens, our face softens if we want it. And we get prosody. It's called prosody, the up, down, back in our voice. I know you want to keep the iPad. No, I'm not going to let you do that. So it's the back, up, down, up, down, up, down. You don't need to practice, like it just happens is when you start to take a strong, steady breath. So now we're sending all these signals of safety that their nervous system will just instinctively pick up as safe enough. So we breathe and be with. The type of breathing that you want to get them to practice is that slower out breath. The types of breathing that really activate that vagus nerve, when the vagus nerve is activated, it triggers a response in the brain called the relaxation response. It was named that by Herbert Burnson, a Harvard cardiologist. When that's triggered, brainwaves change to a more relaxed state, heart rate lowers, blood pressure lowers, and that fight-flight fuel, that's gearing them up, it starts to neutralise. Now we start to get the thinking brain back. Now it can do its job, which is to calm that feeling brain. Now we can talk to them, we can bring them back. So the types of breathing that will kick the vagus nerve into gear are a pause between breaths or a slower out breath, in for 3, hold, and slow, slow, slow for 5, or resistance to your breathing. So, or foggy window breathing. Once I give kids, imagine you've got a cup of hot cocoa, breathe in the warm chocolatey smell for 3. Hold it. Now we're going to blow it cool for 5. It's all the vagus nerve things. We reset our nervous system several times now when we sigh. Pause, slower out breath. What do you do when someone's just really getting on your nerves? What we're doing is we're trying to keep our thinking brain engaged so we don't do anything we're going to regret. This is all instinctive. Don't do the sigh in front of them when they're in big feelings because that is a big sign of danger. But even if you can just take a moment and go, it's going to start to calm you. Otherwise, just let it all go and slow your breathing. Slow your breathing. So what I say to kids, if you don't like deep breathing, just go slow breathing. But for you breathe and be with. Just breathe and be with. That's all you need to do. We wait for the storm to pass. Touch calms the feeling brain. If they want that, anything with rhythm, rub their back. See between my fingers. If you give that a fairly firm rub on them or on someone, that'll activate the vagus nerve. And you know that's where we go with babies and when people aren't doing well. I do it to my husband. I know, you really wanted camping. And there I go, booking the beach. My big kids, I do it. My daughter knows what it is. She goes, I know what you're doing, Mum. I'm like, I know, but you're not backing out of it, are you? Because it does feel lovely. It feels lovely. So just that, rhythmically. If they don't want any of that, let it go. Just breathe and be with. Hold the boundary. You might need to hold the boundary. No, I'm not going to let you, or I've decided. Breathe and be with. We're also letting the feeling brain know that it's got support. It's relationally safe. We're here. We do that through validation. Validation isn't so much about the words, it's the presence. Don't get caught up in, if the words are annoying them, let them go. What they're looking for is, we need to make valid their feelings. Let them know that how they're feeling is valid. I get it. I see you. I know you are. It doesn't mean we agree with them. It means we believe them. You don't want to, so just watch your posture, your face there. If you were really upset and you were talking to someone about something that was going on and you would go, this happened and this happened and this happened, if your friend came in very calmly and said, I can see this really upsets you, it's not going to land, is it? What's your friend going to do? Probably not say any of that, just stand there and go, oh, are you serious? Oh. So it's not so much about the words but the presence. And then we wait, breathe, be with. Don't try and talk them out of it. Don't try and change them. You don't need to change their big feelings. Their big feelings won't hurt them. Hold the boundary, but just be with them. The work is happening. That is the work. You doing this is the work. And it's an invitation to do the work. When their thinking brain comes back, then we do the work. What happened? What did I do that helped? What did I do that didn't help? We separate them from their behaviour. You are such a great kid. I know that you didn't want this to happen, but here we are. How can we put this right? So there might be consequences, but you want them connected to the repair so they can feel the good in themselves. And I never punished my kids. They never had consequences unless they made sense. The consequence is, well, you're going to sit and talk to me about this in a really loving way. And sometimes I'd just go off my head, like that's going to happen too. But for the most part, you want the consequence to be that communication with you. All right, now just quickly before we finish up, the tools you want to give them here are, where am I? Here we go. So the ones you want to give them breathing. Give them breathing. But another one I give to kids is figure 8 breathing. So you can do this with them at night time. Just do a sideways figure 8 on their skin, but you take over the counting. So breathe in for 3, hold. Out for 3, hold. In for 3. So you're adding in touch, which is also really calming to the feeling brain. Another one I say to kids, I say to them, when you're in big feelings, it's like you're in this emotional storm, but the whole time you've got an anchor in you, and it's your breathing. So stop and feel your breathing. Just stop and feel your breathing. If your breathing is racy or shallow, or if you're holding your breath, it's a sign your feeling brain is starting to get upset. Just slow it down. They just need to slow it down. A grounding exercise, that's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And again, they need to practice this when they're calm. What are 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel outside your body, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Or they can do it with colours or letters. Cold water splash activates the vagus nerve. So they splash their face. You don't splash their face. They splash their face with cold water. Or an ice pack, or holding ice or chewing ice can activate the vagus nerve. A foot massage activates them if their feet aren't gross. And if before they get down the stairs, they're not gonna let you touch their feet probably when they're on the second level. But before they get there, a foot massage activates the vagus nerve. A scalp massage activates the vagus nerve. So these are all the little things you can do that actually can help discharge that stress tank. And truly, finally, sleep, exercise, gut health. One of the things we know about kids is they're more likely to follow the rules if they believe those rules to be around their health, safety and welfare. They're less likely to follow the rules if they think we're controlling their personal choices. Where it gets in, so what I say here is if you can give them some latitude on personal choice and put voice to it, you know, you're big enough now, this is up to you. That one's up to you, what they do with their room, the clothes they wear on the weekend, the music they listen to. so that you can be stricter on health, safety and welfare. Where you get into trouble, where the struggle comes, is the definition of health, safety and welfare and personal choice. So the example to give you, just to leave you with, let's say you've got a daughter, you've raised a great kid, a really great kid. She's a queen. You've done a really good job. Now, she has, from the beginning, knows that the rules are the rules are the rules. There's not a lot of room for no, there's not a lot of room for conversation. And she's always respected that. Now, one of your rules from the very beginning is you're not going to any parties with alcohol until you're 18, lady. Now, when she was 10, she was very happy to agree to that. But now she's 16 and she's got a competing developmental goal. One of their really big developmental goals is to make sure they stay attached to their peer group and not be excluded. She doesn't want to disappoint you because you are so important to her. But there's going to be this party that like everybody's going to. There's alcohol at the party. She's got no intention of getting smashed. She's got no intention of having a drop of alcohol. But she doesn't want to be the only one who misses out on going to this party because that's a really big developmental need. She knows if she asks you, you're going to say no because you just don't discuss this stuff. So she thinks this is about personal choice, what she does, who she hangs out with, and you should actually be able to trust her that if she says she's not going to touch alcohol, she's not going to touch it. So actually it's your fault for not trusting her. So what she does is she says to you, hey, on Saturday night there's going to be a sleepover. She's not lying. There is going to be a sleepover, but first of all, there's going to be this party with alcohol. But she doesn't want to tell you that. She doesn't want to disappoint you. She's not doing it to defy you. She's doing it to meet this need. So she goes to the party and she doesn't touch a drop. Like maybe she has a little bit, but she pretty much doesn't touch a drop. You'd be really proud of her. But at the end of the night, because they're adolescents, and as adolescents, they only focus on the positives of a situation, not the negatives of a situation. They're not planning. They're not thinking it through. They're only thinking about the next little bit. The only way she can get home is to get in the car with a drunk driver. Is she going to back herself with the drunk driver, or is she going to call you? We are raising kids to answer that question from when they are so young. Because we are showing them, we're teaching them. We can say to them all you want, you can tell me anything, I'll always love you no matter what, but we need to show them. We need to show them. Now that doesn't mean you let them do everything you want because you are alpha, but are we open to the things that are important? Collaborate. Okay, we've got a problem here. I know you want to go to the party, but I need to know that you're safe. How are we going to work this out? As adolescents, they're really good at coming up with abstract ideas. And if we let them buy into it, and if we show them that we trust them, they're more likely to go with it. We're giving them something to lose. They don't want to lose that. Yeah, they'll make mistakes. They all will. We did too. But it might be, okay, go to the party. I'm picking you up at 9 o'clock and, whatever it is. Or if I text you, whatever it is, collaborate. Okay, that is me done. This is a long journey. It's a long game. There's no hurry to get there. And, we all mess it up many, many times along the way. But our kiddos get there anyway, don't they?
Thanks, Karen. It's always such a joy to learn from you and to hear from you. And you've given us so much to go home and think about and reflect on and work on, and some really useful strategies to use as we work on that balance between care and boundaries and that love and leadership, and most importantly, helping our children to build their toolbox. I'm going home to work on my calm voice, my calm face, and my calm posture. I think all the examples you gave that we shouldn't be. Thank you all again for joining us. Thank you to parents at home online, our boarding parents who are far away. Thank you for joining us and for being with us tonight. I hope you too take away a lot from tonight's session. We are very lucky to have Karen with us, and travel safely in this wild weather. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, great. Oh, it's not till 11, so yeah. Oh no. doesn't matter. It makes no difference to me. No, it makes no difference to me. We should have worked it out. There we go. Yeah.
I wanted to ask a question. How do you change in this situation the alpha from a child back to the parent when the child says, I have the power, I'm going to call Child Protective Service. How do you
So,